And we're live. Hello, folks. How are you out there in YouTube land? I'm Doc Sloan. Welcome to my science fiction station. We're just on a little bit early, as always, just to check that everything's working okay. Hope you can all hear me okay. We've got green for our sound machine, and everything's looking kind of groovy. Though I'm in dire need of a haircut and a shave, or a shave and a haircut for 2 bits. So tonight we're going to be getting on with our God Emperor of Dune book club, and we're going to do chapter 9 tonight. Actually, we have planned to do 2 chapters. Excuse me, we're having a bit of a bit of a time of it here at the moment. So we'll just wait for 10 o'clock to say hello to everybody properly. And in the meantime, if anybody's there, say hello. When I get some precious fluids, there we go. There's 10 o'clock, folks. Hello, my name's Doc Sloan. Thank you very much for joining me. Welcome to my science fiction station, and today we're getting on with our God Emperor of Dune book club, our 6-year passion project. We're in the year 4. Pardon me. I've got a very short chapter for you tonight. So we had planned to do 2 chapters tonight, but just sort of work around the house and stuff took over basically, unfortunately. Pardon me, because we're trying to sell the house at the moment. So it's just been ridiculously hectic here. So we're just going to go with a short chapter tonight. Pardon me. Mute button. Pardon me, folks. Now, wish I had somebody to hit mute when I cough. That would be handy. And there's people arriving. There's Carlos Crescelia saying, hey, Doc and guys. How you doing, Carlos? Hope you're keeping well. Babs Bilo saying, evening, Doc and Howdy, Carlos. How are you, Babs? Good to see you both. Well, it's been a week here. Have you been enjoying St. Patrick's Day globally? Dear, oh dear. Now, let me just get our pages open. As I said, folks, just to let you know, I had hoped to do chapter 9 and 10 tonight. It's not going to happen, I'm afraid. Pardon me. So we're just going to run through this little short chapter. It's quite interesting one, chapter 9 anyway. And we get to meet Hui Noree, or Hui Noree, if you like, who's going to be the ambassador to Lord Leto's court from X. And we've had a little bit of foreshadowing of this, if you like, for warning. We know that the Xian ambassador is coming, that there's a replacement, etc. And we've heard a little bit about Malky, for example, who's Hui Noree's uncle. Well, according to her. Pardon me. Let's just see. Carlos Crescelia saying, hey, Babs. And there's Cynthia saying, hi, Doc. Hi, Babs. And Carlos, hi, Cynthia. How are you? Good to see you. Babs is saying, howdy, Cynthia and Carlos. Evening, Cynthia. Good to see you. I was thinking about you the other day, Cynthia, and your husband, and I was thinking of a question that I was going to ask you maybe to pass on to him. And the question, if you don't mind me, just very quickly, what was in my head, because I've been reading some stuff, I suppose, reading some Mesopotamian epics and things like that. I've read the Epic of Gilgamesh recently, and poems of heaven and hell from ancient Mesopotamia. And I was wondering if you could ask, I was just curious, what's the Holy Grail? This would be my question to your husband. What's the Holy Grail of Assyriology? As in, what's the one big thing that would, blow open the field, if you like, or what's the one big discovery that they're possibly, that they would like to see? That's kind of what my thinking was. I hope you don't mind me saying that out loud, but it just got me thinking. There we go. So just a few minutes ago, I spilled a pint of juice all over my table, had them off the floor and everything. So I'm going to be a wee bit slippy slidey. I'll just give you a wee bit of an idea. We're going to be starting a wee other science, or we've talked about this, another wee sort of science fiction program in the week. But just to give you a wee idea of what I've been reading lately, tore through this with my new reading glasses. I'm getting through so much. It's fantastic. Just because it's been on. What a great show. And a great advert for Northern Ireland, actually, I think, as well. The Night of the Seven Kingdoms. Loved it. Just tore through that again. Recently, I read Dimension of Miracles by Robert Sheckley. I was not impressed by this. This is supposed to be something, I'll just read it on the back. Hilarious sci-fi satire. Douglas Adams said it was the only thing like The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, although written 10 years earlier. It's wonderful. It is the kind of book that if you're into The Hitchhiker's Guide, you might enjoy. I actually found that the humor didn't land at all. Whereas the intellectual humor of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy lands almost every single joke. I didn't laugh once. It was an okay story, profoundly disappointed. Just silly, not, but we just finished Hyperion, tore through this in a couple of days. Long time since I've read it. I've read it twice. I'm very much enjoyable. And it's got stuff in it, I think, that's kind of relevant to Dune, actually, as well. But I'm started reading Fall of Hyperion, the second book. Replacing a book, I picked up Brave New World, part of my book tokens, and I've got a whole range of stuff here as well. But somebody gave me this just to show you very quickly, which I believe is a new book. In fact, it was one of my students. Their parents gave me this. Now, this person's supposed to be, though I don't actually believe it, an ancestor of mine. But it's a new book out about, it's called Collecting the World, The Life and Curiosity of Hans Sloan by James Dalbergo, which I'm looking forward to reading. For anybody who doesn't know Hans Sloan, it's his collection that is the basis of the British Museum, and he's the inventor of milk chocolate. So there you go, just very quickly. That's what I've been reading. Well, not reading all of these, but this is something a little bit of a curiosity. And I'm hoping to tear into a whole bunch of Frank Herbert's books once I finish the Hyperion series and the last of my Lensman stories, because I really want to get on through them. Then I'm going to hit Frank's other books. And I've picked out two to start with already, actually. I've got the Heaven Makers and the God Makers. I'm kind of going to go through the shorter ones first, I think. Anything that really just needs to refresh my memory, because it's all from so long ago. That's what they say. No problem. I'll see what Stephen has to say. Thank you very much. It was just a curiosity. It's like, what's the big thing they'd love to find in that realm of study, if you like? I know of things that, what's the Holy Grail, if you like? What's the big thing we'd love to find in the classical world? That kind of stuff. So it just got me curious, Carlos is saying, with everything that's happening these days, I've been wanting to reread Orwell's 1984. Yeah. I picked up, as you know, I lost a lot of books, so I've been replacing certain ones quite carefully recently with book tokens and stuff. But I've been particularly going for the dystopians, the great dystopian novels. So I've got Yevgeny Zamyatin's We, which is the first of them all, really. Brave New World, again, long time since I've read, and 1984, I've also replaced my copy of it. I think the thing about chocolate in 1984 is fascinating. That's going on. But yeah, 1984 is a brutal, absolutely brutal book. And a lot of people would say it's either a warning or a manual, But I wrote a paper comparing a long time ago. It never got published, but I compared the language in A Clockwork Orange and 1984. The language is the novum, if you like, that kind of thing. But yeah, it's definitely worth a read. And I've kind of changed my attitude to rereading stuff as much as I kind of want to read new things. And there's not a lot of good stuff out there these days. And I'm more looking back to searching for books that I never got a chance to read, or I'm getting very happy to be rereading stuff again, But for anybody who's not read Hyperion, by the way, this is amazing. Will completely blow you away. And what I would recommend very quickly is, if you do read this book, if you want to read this book and you're not familiar with it, to give you a little bit of a heads up, read some Keats poetry. Read Endymion, Hyperion, Lamia. For example, some of those poems by Keats will open the whole book up a bit for you, if you like. I'm a particular fan of Keats, so it's a book that I've always enjoyed. In fact, Dan Simmons is also often, sorry, engaged in kind of intertextuality. Oddly enough, with books and writers and poets that I particularly like. Is another storybook called Carrion Comfort, which is taken from the Sonnet of Desolation by Gerard Manley Hopkins. Brave New World seems scary to me more than 1984, as we seem the living in the latter than the former. It's a Scorched Earth Policy 6. How you doing, sir? Or madam, possibly. I don't know. Sorry. How you doing, Scorched Earth? I don't have you or for those of you who bear with me, you might not know this one. Where are we? Be right at the very end. Z. Where are you, Mr. Zamyatin? There you are. Let me just put the three of them together for you. Orwell, where are you? Oh, it's good to have things off alphabetical order. There you go. So, if anybody really is into this kind of stuff, if you a lot of you might not have heard of the first of these books. So these three books are basically the holy trinity of dystopias. The first one in publishing order is Yevgeny Zamyatin's We. Set in the 20th. I'll just when did this come out? Now it precedes both of the books. It has an interesting publishing history because it was kind of banned and moved about. First published in 1924 in the English language. I do believe it was available for a few years, possibly before that. I might be wrong. I'll quickly give you the blurb on it. This is a superb new translation of a classic dystopian novel, the best single work of science fiction yet written, says Ursula K. Le Guin. Set in the 26th century AD, Zamyatin's masterpiece describes life under the regimented totalitarian society of one state, ruled over by the all-powerful benefactor. Recognized as the inspiration for George Orwell's 1984, We is the archetype of the modern dystopia, or anti-utopia. A great prose poem detailing the fate that might befall us all if we surrender our individual selves to some collective dream of technology and fail in the vigilance that is the price of freedom. Clarence Brown's brilliant translation is based on the corrected text of the novel, first published in Russia in 1988 after more than 60 years suppression. So not published in Russia to 1988. Excellent. Brave New World, of course, Huxley, and George Orwell's 1984. So if you really want to invest yourself in the dystopian, as I said, this is the holy trinity, if you like, for want of a better term, of dystopian novels. But this is the one that a lot of people wouldn't know about, and it's particularly good. I think there's actually a film of We. So yeah, I'll tell you what, that's 3 books to read in a row, isn't it? But they're all brilliant, I probably remember Brave New World the least, but check this out. By the way, this is the book I picked up, and look what it comes with: 3D glasses, and the only thing that's 3D is the cover. But I've actually been wanting a pair of these for a while because I've got some old 2000 AD, some comics and stuff in 3D. That would quite fancy reading like that, Let's see what you're saying, folks, and we'll get cracking in a wee minute. Scorched Earth Policy says, identify as male and pronouns are just a matter of linguistic convenience, but thank you for the book. No worries at all. It's because people are textual, if you like, within here. I don't want to make any assumptions. And I shouldn't, should I? But you're a geezer, Scorched Earth Policy. No worries. Oh, the whole pronouns thing, that's very funny. If anybody ever says to you that my pronouns are they and them, ask them to conjugate a verb for you. Ask them to conjugate the verb to be, the verb to do, and the verb to go with only their pronouns, and watch the madness ensue. You'll find it very funny. It's an utter stop to that. I find most of the pronoun people probably failed English, to be honest with you, or they're whatever the equivalent of in their own country. But yeah, it's absurd, isn't it? Has anybody ever tried talking without pronouns at all? That's a fun little exercise, Scorched Earth Policy. Hello, and there's Julian saying, hello everybody, howdy doc, how you doing, Julian? The car's saying, Julian Scorched. So there you are, folks. Yeah, just to let you know, we've had the Dune Part 3, which looks like Dune Messiah to me, trailer drop. I'm sure you've probably all seen it. A little bit more of yeah, a little bit more of the same by the looks of it. Characters mumbling, name dropping, and I honestly don't know what to think about it. But it looks like I personally think it's possibly just going to be Dune Messiah. I don't think he could do Dune Messiah and Children of Dune in one film unless he plans a part 4. I don't think there's any way, you know. But it seems like a right awful mess already, you know. Goodness gracious, but I'd like to know what you think of the trailer. It looks, of course, it looks amazing. It looks very pretty, doesn't it? Look at the shiny shine. Pardon me. Well, as I said, folks, let's just get started with our little chapter tonight. This is an interesting little one. There's not too much to talk about. We'll probably get through it quite quickly. But what we are going to get here is an introduction to Noree on the planet of Ix. And oh, there's something. Bear with me a wee second. Yeah, that's what I was wondering. There we go. I'll just leave that. Sorry, just bringing something up on the page for later. So let's have a wee look then. This is our epigraph to the chapter, and then it has another little section. Interestingly enough, by the way, this is stylistically different for Frank. And I think we're getting a little, we're seeing Frank play with style in this book, I think. Oh, something else I must talk about at some point. I've done a little bit of research on the publishing problems and what's happened there. Maybe we'll keep it for another time. But yeah, something a little bit out. This is almost just like a script from a play, which is, interestingly enough, is actually how I write out almost everything within the book. I would use a similar kind of thing when people are talking, even if it's not. I will identify who's speaking in the book, if you like, for my own benefit here within the notes. So stylistically a little bit different. So let's just have a wee quick look at the epigraph. Some say I have no conscience. How false they are, even to themselves. I am the only conscience which has ever existed. As wine retains the perfume of its cask, I retain the essence of my most ancient genesis. And that is the seed of conscience. That is what makes me holy. I am God because I am the only one who really knows his heredity. And that's from the Stolen Journals. Leto's Stolen Journals. That's a heck of a statement to make, isn't it? Pardon me, bear with me a wee second. Now, conscience, from the Latin conscientia, meaning knowledge within oneself, shared knowledge, derived from consciere, to know together or be conscious of guilt. It combines con, which is together, and scire, to know, tracing back to the Greek suneidesis, referring to an internal moral guide or shared moral knowledge. Conscience, our inner thoughts, our knowledge, etc. So, according to the God Emperor, some say, I have no conscience. How false they are, even to themselves. I am the only conscience which has ever existed. Now, that's either an outright lie or a gross exaggeration, hyperbole. And it's also, it's a singular absolute, isn't it? It's just me. I'm it. It's as a wine retains the perfume of its cask, I retain the essence of my most ancient genesis. And that is the seed of conscience. Okay, fair enough. That is what makes me holy. I am God. And it's God with a capital G, isn't it? Because I am the only one who really knows his heredity. I suppose that's a statement that's quite possibly true for the God Emperor, but none of us would know our ancestors past, you know, a certain date, if you like. I've got pardon me, photographs, birth certificates, death certificates for my family going back to about 1880. If I wanted to learn anything further back, I'd probably have to hit parish records, that kind of thing, you know. But as to as I said, even the idea that I was told once that he was my ancestor, I've never really believed it, and I still don't believe it. But that will be going back quite a way to find this Sloan guy, So it's an interesting statement, and I don't know what you think about it. Most ancient Genesis born origin is creation, if you like, is what Genesis means. Well, we're doing our Greek, aren't we? So from gignesthai or ginomai goes the Greek Genesis, meaning born, origin, or creation. Seated in my conscience, that's what makes me holy, sacred to God, that kind of thing. And heredity, of course, is the passing on of your, acquired, passing on of physical and mental characteristics genetically from one generation to the other. So just a few words there. It's an interesting statement. It's a bit of an ego boost, isn't it? It's a big ego thing. Pardon me. And I'm the only conscience which has ever existed. I wonder what we think of that statement. It's a very singular thing to say, isn't it? And it just, the rest of you don't have a conscience. I'm the only thing. Again, I think it's kind of exaggerated hyperbole. And one of the things that we have to think about the stolen journey again is who are they for? If you see what I mean, and the God Emperor knows who they're for. They're for those who come after, if you like, So what we've got here within this chapter, before we get cracking, essentially is an interview between Noree, who's a candidate at this point for ambassador, and is not actually confirmed as the ambassador yet. And this interview is at the request of Noree with the Inquisitors of Ix. So the little thing that just states here, by the way, following the epigraph, we get this bit in italics. The Inquisitors of Ix, having assembled in the Grand Palais with the candidate for ambassador to the court of the Lord Leto, the following questions and answers were recorded. And then essentially what we have is a dialogue presented kind of in a almost like a play form, if you like, with our each person, I suppose, their colon and then their speech. So that the two people that we have talking in this chapter is an Inquisitor and Noree. There are more Inquisitors present, I believe. So it's, well, in fact, we know that. Here's what it says. The Inquisitors of Ix, having assembled in the Grand Palais with the candidate of ambassador to the court of Lord Leto, the following questions and answers were recorded. I always say that. Now, the Grand Palais, by the way, is in France. This is a little odd reference to this, I suppose. The Grand Palais de Champs-Élysées. Have I been there? No, I haven't. No. I'm trying to think what I saw in France when I was there. Commonly known as the Grand Palais is a historic site, exhibition hall, and museum complex located in the 8th arrondissement of Paris between the Champs-Élysées and the Seine. When was that built? Established for the Universal Exposition of 1900. Very, very pretty building. So I imagine that the building that we're talking about is, I don't know if you can see it there on Wikipedia, it's pretty cool. It's a huge, I don't know, how would you describe it? What do they say? What kind of architectural style would it be? Designed according to Beaux Arts taste, the building features ornate stone facades, glass vaults, period innovations that included iron, light steel framing, and reinforced concrete. It's listed as a historic monument by the Ministry of Culture. Would remind you a wee bit on Crystal Palace, I suppose, in England. That kind of thing. So that's the Grand Palais, by the way. Ba, 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 ba. Goodness, I haven't been to France in donkey's years. Hi, Carlos. So this epigraph sounds like something Malky would say to Leto, perhaps to goad him. So it's something I wondered, how much of the God Emperor is rubbed off on Malky and vice versa. Some say it actually also struck me as very Trumpish. Some say, who are you talking about? How false they are even to themselves. I am the only conscience which has ever existed. A nice little bit as wine retains the perfume of its cask. I retain the essence of my most ancient Genesis. That's the seed of conscience. It's what makes me holy. I am God, because I'm the only one who really knows this heredity. It's a strange statement to make, isn't it? Highly egotistical as well. So here we go. Let's have a look. Now, I would just say that what this chapter offers really is an insight, I think, into Noree's character. Also, I suppose, some of the motivations of the Ixians. So here we go. And again, remember the interesting bit is that this is an interview that's being conducted at Noree's request. Okay, so off we go with the Inquisitor. You indicate that you wish to speak to us of the Lord Leto's motives. Speak. Noree, your formal analyses do not satisfy the questions I would raise. What questions? Sorry, Inquisitor, what questions? Noree, I ask myself what would motivate the Lord Leto to accept this hideous transformation. Pardon me. This worm body, this loss of humanity. You suggest merely that he did it for power and for long life. I left out a word there. Bear with me a second, folks. There we go. Inquisitor, are those not enough? So why would you become a worm? Power and longevity, essentially. Pardon me. Inquisitor, are those not enough? Noree, ask yourselves if one of you would make such payment for so paltry a return. Now, just before we get to the next bit, it's an interesting question, isn't it? Would you pay the price of Leto? Would you, if you could see something, would you turn yourself? I suppose it's an interesting question for the reader. Would you do it? Would you, if you were in his place, would you become the worm? I don't think I would. And again, the little point there, I suppose, the loss of humanity. And again, it suggests that he did it. So the question is he really human anymore? No, I don't think so. Now, here's the Inquisitor. From your infinite wisdom then, tell us why the Lord Leto chose to become a worm. Pardon me, I thought that was quite cheeky. Noree says, does anyone here doubt his ability to predict the future? Now then, sorry, Inquisitor, now then, is that not payment enough for his transformation? So there you go. That's a suggestion that surely what else could it, power, long life, but also the ability to predict the future. Of course, he's not running with the thing here because he could already do that, couldn't he? And we get this told to us by Noree. Noree says, but he already had the prescient ability, as did his father before him. No, I propose that he made this desperate choice because he saw in our future something that only such a sacrifice would prevent. And she's on the right track, isn't she? And it's a sacrifice, isn't it? Transformation previously. Why would you do this? Why would you choose to become a worm? Become a worm, transformation, sacrifice. A desperate choice, it's called as well. The Inquisitor, what was this peculiar thing which only he saw in our future? Noree, I do not know, but I propose to discover it. You make, Inquisitor, you make the tyrant appear a selfless servant of the people. Noree. Was that not a prominent characteristic of his Atreides family? And I've written next to that, no, that's an illusion. That's propaganda. Are the Atreides selfless servants of the people? Absolutely not. So we've got the use of the word tyrant. We had a wee bit of a chat about that there previously. Appear as a selfless servant of the people. I made a wee note next to this. See the British royal family. That's how they sell their stuff. Basically, we're servants. We serve the public, and it's nonsense. It really is absolute nonsense. They don't serve anyone but themselves, and they accumulate wealth, and they pretend to be, you know, as much as our royal family seems to be the top of the society, they're actually the ultimate bottom feeders, for want of a better term. Bear with me a second, folks. I'm just looking for a highlighter here. Don't want to send them all flying like the last time. Apologies. Let me just call it. So, of course, you know, the thing is, how do we look at the God Emperor? In this conversation, jumping back and forth, it is, you know, it is a sacrifice to take on this mantle. It's the thing that he has seen in his future. That is probably the raison d'etre for it, that he could do it, that his father could not. And so the thing that, you know, as much as we have a bit of insight into this, the Inquisitors and Noree don't, but she's on the right track, isn't she? Pardon me. So, as I said, this chapter really, I think, reveals about her character. One, that she's astute. She's actually seeing the correct. She's on to something here. She's right. The second probably suggests that she's a bit empathic towards the God Emperor. And we're going to get to this because this is, you know, what the purpose of Noree, if you like, whenever we get there. It's an interesting thing. And in many ways, I think she's kind of similar to Leto. So was that not a prominent characteristic of his Atreides family? The most prominent characteristic of the Atreides is self-slaughter, as we know, of self-familial slaughter. And Inquisitor says, so the official histories would have us believe. And I've written next to that, the official histories must be Atreides histories. Noree says, the oral history affirms it. Now, what I've written next to this is, does it? How so? And then I've also written, these are just wee questions. Is Leto behind the oral history as well? And the oral tradition, if you like, if you think about an oral tradition that's been carried on for thousands of years, and it can do so, you know, in the forms of stories and art and all sorts of things, songs, books, epics, how you know, but generally it's the kind of, you know, the stories, the folk stories that we tell. He's been around for 3,500 years. I'm wondering how much has he interfered with the oral history? You know, and we had a wee natter the other week, didn't we, about oral history and how often it can be quite correct. It's and how often it can be ignored by proper historians or people who are trying to actually find, you know, make historical inquiry, if you like. They put it down. Often it's put down to fanciful folk tales, you know, that are blown incredibly out of, you know, proportion, and, you know, with all the imagination in the world, this kind of thing. And Frank's not a wee bit about oral history here and historians, I think. So we get the Inquisitor saying the oral history affirms it, that the tyrant appears as a selfless servant of the people. The oral history affirms that the Atreides were like that, servants of the people. I disagree. Inquisitor says, what other good character would you give to the tyrant worm? Good character, Sirrah? Sorry, I need to keep reading the people, don't I? Noree says, good character, Sirrah? Inquisitor, character then. So we've removed the word good from the question, which I thought was quite funny. A selfless servant of the people, is that a good quality? Is it a quality of good character? I don't know. He's a friend to rebellions. He's, you know, a lot of people are dead because of this worm. But it's interesting character then. So here we get this little thing from Noree. My uncle Malky often said that the Lord Leto was given to moods of great tolerance for selected companions. Inquisitor. Other companions he executes for no apparent reason. Now, what Noree says next, I think there are reasons, and my uncle Malky just some of those reasons. Inquisitor, give one such deduction. So here we go. Number one, Noree says clumsy threats to his person. Inquisitor, clumsy threats? No. Clumsy threats now? And he does not tolerate pretensions. Recall the execution of the historians and the destruction of their works. He doesn't, Inquisitor, he does not want the truth known. And again, a few exclamation marks with the Inquisitor here. So, are there any other good qualities of the tyrant worm? Characteristics of his, what other good character would you give to the tyrant worm? So he's moody and has tolerance for selected companions, and that's Malky we're talking about in particular, isn't it? And the likes of his majordomos and so on. But we don't really figure out who these companions are, do we? So other companions, it says, he executes for no apparent reason. And again, I'm wondering, is that things like the Duncans is he talking about here? I don't think so. I'm wondering how many executions, one thing, killing a Duncan, execution would suggest publicly murdering people. We're told there are reasons for it. Clumsy threats to his person. He's pretty much invulnerable. And he does not tolerate pretensions. Pretentious people. What's the harm in that? They're pretentious, that's all. It's not a big harm. Recall the execution of the historians and the destruction of their works. He does not want the truth known. So, any alternative histories, any histories that Leto does not agree with, he murders the historians and then destroys their work. It's control of the narrative, isn't it? And it's an interesting thing, as much as the history that will move on within the book, one of those things that people like to say is that history will be written by the victor, and occasionally it is, but not very. History is actually ultimately written by historians, and regardless of how victorious you or your culture might be, they'll be written about you long after you're dead, and probably your culture too. People don't escape history, and some people think that they can write their place in it, and they're absolutely deluded. Who was it who said it? I can't remember. Something like Churchill said something. I'm not afraid of history because I intend to write it. That kind of thing. There's certain people who think that they can make their mark in the world, and that's how the world will remember them. And it's not. Churchill's considered a very good wartime leader, for example, but an absolute scumbag prior to the war, and one of the worst leaders of Britain in peacetime. He was a very bad peace leader. And of course, as you know, Yoda would tell you, wars do not make one great. It's interesting to think if you get Donald Trump and wonder what he thinks his legacy will be. He will not create it. Neither will his family or the people around him. History will judge him, I think, on his actions and his words, and he'll have no control over it. So it's an interesting thing. And the other thing is that just quickly on the point of histories, there are bad histories out there. If you're studying ancient cultures, for example, they're useful. Because they can actually see, you compare them to other things, and they're useful to see what's the bias here, what's the slant, if you see what I mean. Why this? And history is an interesting thing in my country, for example. Most people in Northern Ireland are never taught a single word of Irish history. They're taught British history. And in the schools here, you might cover GCSE history, that kind of thing. A little bit of local history here. I would have done the learn gun running for my own project at school, the Titanic, that kind of thing. But no, we don't study Irish history in Northern Ireland at all. It's quite sad because it's kind of interesting. No. Here, let me just catch up with your comments, folks. There's a bunch. Let's see. My text says, so Cynthia said the epigraphs sound like something Malky would say to Leo, perhaps to goad him. Cynthia, pardon me. So my text says this worm body, this loss of humanity, emphasis on Leto's own humanity, not humanity in general. Here, I'll tell you something. I've been reading about, I have been doing a bit of work on the differences in the texts. And I think that this one's not too bad, but apparently some of the differences in the next two books are going to be a hell of a lot. And it looks like there's more in the UK editions than there are in the American ones. Let me see where that was. The worm body, this loss of humanity. Oh, let me get to my notes. Where are we? There we are. This worm body, this loss of humanity. Let's see. This worm body, this loss of humanity. Right, bear with me a second, just now check that. This worm body, this loss of humanity, emphasis on Leto's own humanity, not humanity in general. So I've got his humanity and mine. I've got this worm body, this loss of his humanity. Did I miss out the word his? I've got that. Sorry if I did. Oh no, I have left it out of my notes. Thank you very much. As always, Cynthia, this loss of his humanity. You're quite right. That makes it much more personal, doesn't it? Thank you very much. So I left out to change this loss of his humanity. No, it's in my book, but I've missed the word. Occasionally do it. Something must have distracted me. Ash style from Evil Dead. I'm just trying to remember what's Ash's surname. I can't remember. Ash Williams, yeah, I thought it was. Yeah, sorry, I think I probably got distracted. Ash Williams style, 1, 2, 3, 3. It happens to me quite a lot. Thank you very much, Cynthia. Yes, indeed. That bit, I asked myself, what would motivate the Lord Leto to accept this hideous transformation, this worm body, this loss of his humanity? I left that word out. You suggest merely that he did it for power and long life. There we go. Thank you very much. Julian saying it does raise the question I've always had about Leto's pronouns, they, it. He, him, it, they. He could probably run the full gamut of them. I would imagine the royal we would be in there as well. I've been known to use it quite a bit in my own time. They, it. Yeah, it. Well, he is. I often think what would have been fantastic. It's the thing that makes me wonder is why didn't Ganima join him as a worm? She could have born a few children, if you like, for the Atreides line, and then I'll do the same thing. I guess one God Emperor is enough, isn't it? But yeah, they are it. Either one would apply. Laughing out loud, says Carlos. Carlos says, "Hi is specifically designed to kill him. He is specifically designed to kill him with kindness." She's engineered, isn't she? She's an interesting character. I'm looking forward to seeing the two of them, getting into the details of them interacting. Scorestars Paul is 6 cent. I would just embrace the Bene Gesserit way of extending life. Yeah, I don't know. There's some things that just don't make sense in the Dune universe. And I always thought that we were good natter about that the Bene Gesserit have the ability to make themselves stay forever youthful, but they don't do it because they think everybody would attack them and kill them. Yet their ability to control people with their with voice, that wouldn't get people to kill them. I don't. I think that how the Bene Gesserit would doesn't quite add up, does it? Sometimes. But the Bene Gesserit way of extending life, you can have a long life, yeah. So they say if having a conscience is tied to knowing one's ancestors, then propaganda, Atreides' oral history, would by design keep others from having a conscience. Is that suggesting that that's what he's kind of at, isn't it? I'm the only conscience, the rest of you don't have one. It's a strange thing to say. Propaganda would by design keep others from having a conscience. Or the only conscience is the Atreides conscience. Because they serve us and they rule us. So we should just go with that. Yeah, it's a good point. Let's see, where did we get to? Yes. And he does not tolerate pretensions, recall the execution of the historians and the destruction of their works. He does not want the truth known. I've got a little skull for all the historians that Leto has executed. The historians executed by Leto II. So he's a murderer. And if what is it? Clumsy threats. Fair enough, but to kill people for writing a false history, that's a bit weak, isn't it? It's a bit malignant. It's not the character. And I suppose what other good character would you give to the Tyrant Worm? And we've had that good character, Sirrah. Character then. The good has been removed. Given to moods of great tolerance. He tolerates selected companions. Tolerance is a particular word, isn't it? Other companions he executes for no apparent reason. He does not tolerate pretensions, recall the execution of the historians. Yeah, historians aren't doing too well on this. Now, Noree says, he told my uncle Malky that they lied about the past, and mark you, who would know this better than he? We all know the subject of his introversion. In other words, other memory. Inquisitor, what proof have we that all of his ancestors live in him? Noree says, I will not enter that bootless argument. I will merely say that I believe it on the evidence of my uncle Malky's belief and his reasons for that belief. Inquisitor, we have read your uncle's reports and interpret them otherwise. Malky was overly fond of the worm. Noree, my uncle accounted him the most supremely artful diplomat in the Empire, a master conversationalist and expert in any subject you could name. Inquisitor, did your uncle not speak of the worm's brutality? Noree, my uncle judged him ultimately civilized. Inquisitor, I asked about brutality. Noree, capable of brutality, yes. I used to have a wee pithy saying that one of my own was that civilization was the ultimate barbarity. If you like. Civilization, ancient and evil. To quote Conan the Barbarian, the movie. But brutality, executing people capable of brutality, yes, he can be brutal. Inquisitor, your uncle feared him. Noree, the Lord Leto lacks all innocence and naivete. He is to be feared only when he pretends these traits. That was what my uncle said. So yes, in other words, I've written next that Malky did fear him. He'd be stupid not to. So this is an interesting thing. There's no innocence in him, no naivety. I don't think you can shock the God Emperor. or surprise him, really. He is to be feared. So he is to be feared only when he pretends these traits. So when he's acting innocent, ooh, or all naive, oh, I don't know what, this kind of thing, that's the deadly bit. And I would argue that if you're acting like that prior to brutally dealing with someone, then that's you're baiting them. You're setting a trap for them, aren't you? You're pretending to be something you're not. It's an interesting trait of the god. So we're getting some of his characteristics here, according to the Ixians, anyway. So yeah, he is to be feared only, but he is to be feared only when he pretends these traits. He puts them on. So the God Emperor can act all innocent and he can act naive, and if he does, you're in deep trouble, because there's no need for him to do these things. Inquisitor, those were his words. Yes. Ch09. More than that, Malky said, the Lord Leto delights in the surprising genius and diversity of humankind. He is my favorite companion. Boon companion. Pardon me. Inquisitor, giving us the benefit of your supreme wisdom, how do you interpret these words of your uncle? Again, he's being cheeky here, isn't he? Pardon me. If someone spoke to me like that, I'd be extremely cheeky back to them. You want my supreme wisdom, do you? Way off, I would take it as being rude. And let me give you some of my supreme wisdom. That kind of thing, it's cheeky, it's provocative, isn't it? That's the second time he's done this, isn't it, the Inquisitor? Your infinite wisdom from previous time, now it's supreme. Supreme, super, your wisdom is above ours. Do not mock me. Sorry, Ch09, do not mock me. Inquisitor, we do not mock. We seek enlightenment. Ch09. These words of Malky and many other things that he wrote directly to me suggest that the Lord Leto is always seeking after newness and originality, but that he is wary of the destructive potential in such things. So my uncle believed. So belief, as opposed to absolute knowledge, if you like. Inquisitor, is there more which you wish to add to these beliefs, which you share with your uncle? Ch09, I see no point in adding to what I've already said. I'm sorry to have wasted the Inquisitor's time. This is interesting. It's the last one here. Last paragraph here. Inquisitor, but you have not wasted our time. You are confirmed as ambassador to the court of Lord Leto, the God Emperor of the known universe. And that statement there completely changes the tone, doesn't it? So it's almost that you could almost, seeing that, reread the passage again, get it differently. Note she's being provoked, but not because it's cheeky. It's almost that they're putting her to the test here, even though she's requested this meeting. And it looks like at this point, with Ch09, that possibly for her, she didn't think it went that well, that she's made a mess of this. I'm sorry to have wasted your time. But she's trying to get a grasp on the God Emperor here. Her character is on display here. Again, we don't really learn much about the Ixians or see much about them. We do get a little bit of insight into Malky, from Malky, her supposed uncle, and also that this is correspondence to her. Assuming from the time he was ambassador to Ch09 back on X. So he does fear him. The God Emperor can be brutal. He's a supremely artful diplomat. He's to be feared when he acts all innocent and naive. He doesn't like people lying about the past or telling a version of the story that he's not happy with. And he delights in new things. Something original, something new. That's what I've always appreciated about the God Emperor's character. I'm like that myself. I appreciate new things. I like originality. I like original people. I don't like people who pretend to be other people or this kind of thing, or I like people just to be themselves, to be open and honest. But yeah, I love new things. Something new is interesting, isn't it? Of course, it can be dangerous. There used to be an old quote, I can't remember exactly what it is, but any kind of new technology is kind of balanced. It's like a race between destruction and something else. I can't remember. I thought it was an Arthur C. Clarke one, you know. Killing with kindness, scorched earth. I would just, oh yeah. So they said, if having a conscience is tied to knowing one's own ancestors, the propaganda would, by design, keep others from having a conscience. Flourish Flaccid House saying, hey, evening all. Working late, so missed the start. We'll listen tomorrow in full. No worries, Flaccid House. We're pretty much done anyway. It's a very short chapter. As I said, I do apologize, folks. Normally I would run another chapter with this, but I've just had a bit of a crazy week. Now, why have I folded a page like that? Inventing the words. Oh, I don't know. Possibly just an accidental fold. I occasionally fold the wee things in the books for way ahead. Our next chapter will be 6.5 pages, but that's it. And yeah, we're getting a bit of an insight into what the God Emperor is really like, because this is a character who's grown up and changed and transformed considerably, to say the least, since we last met him. We're only a few chapters into the book. We've seen him in action. We've got some sense of who he is through these journals, through his interactions here. And he's certainly a fascinating character, isn't he? The idea of having something new, something original, is kind of tied to that Abraxas kind of idea of God, if you like. But the gist of this is this: that if you are God, you are omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient. All the omnis, as God would say in old Harry's game. And life must be incredibly dull. Existence would have to be hell, I think. I often think that the idea of, certainly the concept of the Abrahamic God is a concept of hell, because I believe that people create their own gods, but to be like that would be to have no joy, no nothing. Nothing will ever surprise you, nothing will ever engage you, nothing, because you know everything in art. So what's the point? It sounds like hell to me. No, nothing new, nothing surprising. I don't know. That's just my opinion, by the way. I hope nobody's offended by that statement. But it's an interesting thing. If you were God, you know everything. Well, what are you going to do with your day? And I don't know. It's an interesting thing. It's a curious question to wonder. Interestingly enough, reading through Hyperion, we have what's called the Abraham problem. The discussion of that within this book. Abraham's, attempted sacrifice of Isaac. There's a bit of Teilhardian philosophy within this, and it's a problem that there's a Jewish character in this book called Saul Weintraub, and his daughter Rachel is aging backwards, and it's partly to do with how the character, deals with this strange tragedy, and his faith, how he examines it, etc., and then taking his daughter to be sacrificed to the Shrike. It's a very interesting little thing. It's got me thinking. Again, if anybody's not read Dan Simmons, it's science fiction royalty. The Hyperion Cantos is one of the best. And I mean, it's in the top 10 series of all time. I think it's so well written. And I think actually, if you're looking for scale and scope, it would blow. I'd imagine it might blow Dune out of the water, actually. Just the size of its universe, its intent, and stuff like that. The Shrike is a very interesting monster. I'll not say anything else about it. I don't ever like to tell people what the Shrike is, because it ruins the series. So I will never give up what the Shrike is, except that it's a monster, but I won't say anything else about it. No, I'll give its qualities, but I won't say what it is, if you see what I mean. So yeah, really enjoying reading some Keats and some Dan Simmons at the same time at the minute. If anybody's got any questions or etc., fire away. And I said if anybody's got any comments on the trailer, I'm kind of curious to know what you all thought about it. The other thing, what was I written down here? Statement changes tone at the end. Basically, it really does. That yes, it's almost like you've passed the test. You have not wasted our time. You are confirmed up until this point. The very last paragraph in this chapter, she's not the ambassador of X. She's a candidate. There are others, or we can assume that there are others. And then the formality, actually, with because we get the worm tyrant, this kind of thing. The Inquisitor's tone is very shifted, isn't it? It's you are confirmed. You have not wasted our time. There's no exclamation marks, no shouting. You are confirmed as ambassador to the court of Lord Leto, the God Emperor of the known universe. It's very formal, isn't it? Why am I doing all this stuff? I don't know. So I'm wondering, as much as this was an interview that was requested by Hui, is it a test for her? But we do certainly see her character here. Something I've written down here, by the way, at the end of this is a consideration of Leto. Now, my head's going somewhere with this, so I just thought I'd write this down quickly. You might like this one, Julian, if you're still there. We talk about the Atreides in terms of the Atreides myths. Paul Atreides is a hybrid, for example. So Leto the First would be Agamemnon, but you could also consider him as Priam, to be honest with you. However, Paul Atreides, the characters that he inhabits, if you like, from Greek mythology, apart from Oedipus, within the Atreides line, are solidly, he is Agamemnon, Paul Atreides. You get that from the sacrifice of Leto II, the baby that's killed, not this one. And he's also Orestes as well. I think there's a number of the Pelopids that are within that role. But what it got me thinking on here was Tiresias, the blind seer. Now he's all over the place in Greek mythology, and he's also become a serpent. I think he's quite funny. A blind prophet of Apollo in Thebes, famous for clairvoyance and for being transformed into a woman for 7 years. He is the son of the shepherd Eberus and the nymph Chariclo. Tiresias participated fully in 7 generations in Thebes, being an advisor to Cadmus, the founder of Thebes. One thing, am I mixing? Yeah, what am I thinking of? I'm possibly mixing him up with another priest, but it's just the idea of the serpents being blind, prophecy, etc., etc. And he's an interesting chap. The wee story, the sex change of Tiresias on Mount Selene. In the Peloponnese, Tiresias came upon a pair of copulating snakes and hit them with a stick, which displeased the goddess Hera, who punished Tiresias by transforming him into a woman. As a woman, Tiresias became a priestess of Hera, married and had children, including his daughter Manto, who also possessed the gift of prophecy. Afterwards, as told by Phlegon, god of prophecy, Apollo informed Tiresias if she spots copulating snakes and similarly harms them, she will return to her previous form. After 7 years as a woman, Tiresias found mating snakes. Depending on the myth, she either made sure to leave the snakes alone this time, or according to Igneous and Phlegon, trampled them. In both outcomes, Tiresias was released from the sentence and changed back to a man. So it's one of those ones where the gods have a bit of fun with him. Excuse me, but I'm trying to think about why I was thinking of him. And I'm possibly thinking about another seer, but he is the blind seer. No, my head's away with it actually today. Pay no attention, folks. There's something about the character that it's possibly that I'm thinking more about Paul. And I've been having a wee nosy at Crom as well, our Irish worm god, and a few others. I'm having a wee nosy at, Let's see. Cynthia, I realize we'll learn more later in the story, but at this point, I read this chapter as an introduction to Malky, the revelation that Leto has had a friend close enough to make these observations. Yeah, it's very much a part of it. This boon companion, which I've written down here, that's the term that we would use whenever the gods take on someone like this, like Endymion or Pelops is a boon companion, isn't he, for Neptune, I think. This kind of thing. Boon companions in Greek mythology are often sexual lovers of the gods, whether it be heterosexual or homosexual. And then generally, I don't know, you tend to get the gods getting a bit bored, give them some divine gifts, this kind of thing. I think Pelops gets a couple of good horses, doesn't he, on a chariot that's the horses never touch. I think their feet never touch the ground, that kind of thing, or never touch water or something. Which he uses to win the hand of Hippodamia and kill, what's his name? Oanomaus, which is that's the source of the Atreides myth, actually. So there's something about Tiresias that was flitting about in my head. I don't know if it's probably all to do with St. Patrick's Day and serpents and worms and all of this kind of stuff that's been floating around in my head. Must have a wee nosy at him. He's an interesting character. The main story that he's most famous for is that the gods, Hera and Zeus, have an argument about which sex gets the most pleasure from, which gender gets the most pleasure from sex. And because Tiresias has lived both as a man and a woman, they bring him to settle the answer, to settle the argument, if you like. And he answers that women have 9 times the pleasure that men do. But I'm trying to get my head around some things with the God Emperor, serpents, worms, this kind of thing. I said probably just something about Tiresias, and then I realize I'm probably thinking about Paul there and blindness. Little things that pop into your head, But yeah, a little bit about Malky here too, Cynthia, as you say. Lord Leto delights in the surprising genius and diversity of mankind. He's my favorite companion. Person he like to hang around with most, It's an interesting thing. Delight, again, you can have so we get a range of emotions here for the God Emperor. And we're told that he does have a conscience, but he does brutal things. He is the ruler of the known universe, and his actions probably have killed billions and billions of people. At this point, though, we don't really able to get a sense of a body count with the God Emperor, unlike with his father Paul. Well, listen, folks. Thank you very much for joining me. I'm cutting this one a wee bit short tonight. It's a very short chapter. But I've got a whole lot of work to get done before the end of the night. Just get this house sorted. We're trying to get it sold, etc. And yeah, there we go. So thank you very much for joining me. We'll be back next Thursday, as usual, with the next chapter with a bit more teeth to it. I said, apologize for not getting that. I was going to put the two of them together tonight, but this has kind of been a bit fortuitous for me. So it was a nice little easy thing for me to get through tonight. And it's a chapter that's got me thinking more than rather than getting any real stuff out of it, if you know what I mean. It's got me pondering about Hui's character, about Malky's character, about the God Emperor's character. It also made me wondering a fair bit about the Ixians, what's in their Grand Palais, Zut alors. Because we never really get too much about Ix, do we? I think I was saying the other week there, there's a lot of Wizard of Oz stuff to do with X. We put up a wee picture there, but there you go. So that's about it. Dune trailer has dropped for anybody Dune 3, for anybody who's not seen it. And I'm thinking I'm maybe trying to catch. Is it out here yet? No, it's not. Maybe trying to catch Project Hail Mary to see what it's like at the cinema. Though I have to say I'm absolutely stunned at the similarity between Project Hail Mary and Spaceman from Bohemia. Is that what it's called? Bear with me a second. Spaceman of Bohemia. It's outrageous, the similarities between the two, and there looks like something dodgy going on there. I must look into the publication history of those books. But for anybody's, watch a trailer for Project Hail Mary. Watch the trailer for Spaceman, the Adam Sandler one, which is the movie version of Spaceman of Bohemia. Unbelievable similarity. Far too much to be a coincidence, I think. But there you go. We'll be back real soon, folks, with that. And hopefully, by the way, I'm going to jump on and real soon do a sci-fi show. As I said, we're going to start with the A to Z real soon. Oh goodness! So apologies, I'm a bit all over the place tonight. I'm very tired. I've got a chunk of work to get done here in a minute, and I thought this would just be a wee easy brain relax for tonight, you know. So I'll see you all real soon. Cynthia says thanks, Doc. Thank you, Cynthia. Carlos says take it easy, Doc. Good night, guys. Thank you, everybody, as always. Good to see you all. Look after yourself. Haven't heard from Chaya tonight, but if you're watching, Chaya, we hope you're all safe in Israel. Look after yourself and be safe. And also to anybody out in the world, just look after yourselves, be safe, keep your heads down. That's the thing to say to people, isn't it? But yeah, we'll see you all real soon. Thank you very much. Good night. All the best. Bye bye.